All right, guys, welcome on in to episode 5 of Talkin TUF. In this episode, we have a pretty interesting fight. 43-year-old Bobby Maximus, his real name is Rob MacDonald, we'll get into that in a sec, of Team Pena. He's fighting Eduardo Perez of Team Nunes. And before we get into each fighter, I'll start off with there's been some good drama in this episode. I mean, last season was pretty, mundane compared to some other seasons. But in this season, it seems like they got some people that were, down to talk a little shit, things like that. But I guess I'll start with someone who we were talking about in the last episode, Kat Paprocki of Team Nunes. If you guys remember, she lost to the late replacement, Laura Gallardo. Just couldn't really deal with the grappling, and part of her reasoning for that, she said, was the game plan that Team Nunes gave her. She said that she didn't think it was as tailored to her skill sets, and she said she probably should have said something about that. But I don't know. I don't really know how to feel about that, because if you guys remember, in the first couple episodes, I did say it seemed like, compared to Julianna Pena, who I still say is clearly the better coach. I think she's a great coach. She cares about the fighters. Obviously, she even said in this episode she loses sleep over them. Team Nunes, it just seems like maybe they're a little more disconnected. I don't think that they're bad per se, but if your fighter doesn't feel comfortable enough to come up to you, tell you that, yeah, maybe this game plan isn't exactly what's best for my skill sets, I don't know. I sense a disconnect when I see that. But on the other hand, I also think that it was probably because, if you guys also remember, that Kat trains out of her own gym with her husband training her, and the training, when you train out of your own place, it's very centralized towards you, and it sometimes can sway reality, or it could mess with your confidence if you don't get that same type of training elsewhere. And it seems like that might have been the case here. Because, obviously with the Ultimate Fighter, you have a whole team. So the training, while, for your fight, it can be centralized, towards you. In reality, you're going to be dealing with the whole team. So, and I'm sure she knew that coming in, but I don't know. Maybe it's, a subconscious thing. But that was just my own, belief for it. Because, when you're training on your own and, you're getting trained by someone who's your significant other, the training is always going to be about you. And when you're training with a bigger team, in this case, it's not always going to be that way. So I think that maybe that could have been part of the reason why she struggled, maybe telling them what she felt. But, maybe we'll see what happens in the future with her. Who knows? She's got a lot of time still. Most of the fighters who are coming in here still have a lot of upside. So with that, we'll just keep getting into the rest of the stuff with this episode. But back to Bobby Maximus. I'm just gonna call him Bobby. I'll talk about why his real name is not that in a second. But he's very successful. Like I say, he's 43. He's already built a life. He has a family. And but like I said, we're gonna get into that. But the main thing I want to get into right now is that he runs a gym, and he also has a lot of knowledge in sports psychology. And because of that, he's been helping Brogan and Claire of Team Nunes, who are obviously not a part of his team, just giving them good affirmations, just good things to put in their habits, in terms of mental strategies for winning and things like that. But nothing in terms of fight prep or telling them what was happening in their training sessions at Team Pena. And because of that, though, Julianna Miller of Team Pena, she was getting a little bit insecure about it, and she was thinking that Bobby was probably telling those two things about the team and things about their training, and her specifically, I guess. And I respect that she came out not privately, in front of everybody, in front of the team, and called him out for that. And she said it respectfully. She wasn't she wasn't being a bitch about it, I guess. And clearly her and Bobby disagreed on that, because I personally, I agree with Bobby, because it's not he was saying, oh, well, Julianna's not good at this, not good at this. He's just telling them things about the mental game, and that could help anybody. And I see why Julianna, I understand why Julianna is pissed off, because you don't want your opponents to have any advantage. And while he might not be telling anything technical, still giving them a mental edge might mean something. But the thing is, Bobby even said, like, yeah, if you guys want to do that, like, I'm here. So, I don't know. I think it was a little bit, I guess, maybe of, like, an overreaction. But I get where Julianna's coming from. I mean, she did say, like, something in one of the tape pieces that because of, like, something with her past, she has, like, a harder time trusting people. And, like, I get that. That makes a total sense. Like, I get it from both perspectives. But I think Julianna is probably talking about something that just, like, isn't as big of a problem as she thinks it is. And I think that insecurity might be a big deal in the future for her. I mean, we'll get more into that, too, actually, in this episode. But, yeah, I mean, she complained about it in the van to Bobby publicly, which I respect. And then Bobby talked to her also, again, at the house about it. And, like, it didn't really go really anywhere. But, I think it's good that, like, they're having those discussions. It shows that, like, they're more of, like, a close-knit team, I guess. But with that, I guess the last thing I want to get into before I get into the fighters was Chandler Cole of Team Nunes, one of the heavyweights. He was training with Mal Bartling and just moved the wrong way, put his arm in a bad position, and he tore a ligament in his elbow. It was a pretty bad one, but the doctor did say that he is able to fight. But the thing is, it will not be healed by the time that he does fight. So that's a big risk for him, I mean, that he's taken. They just said don't put any, like, sideways motion on it. So, like, you know, if you're in, like, an arm bar, don't go this way or that way. Just focus on, like, these types of movements. But that's kind of tough to do. I mean, when you're training for a fight, I guess we'll see how that goes in the future. You know, I think similarly to how we were shown a preview about Chantel's weight, I think that this might matter in the future, but we'll see. And with that, we'll get right into the first fighter. We'll get into the first pick of Team Nunes, Eduardo Perez. So Eduardo Perez, he's honestly very impressive to me so far, and we'll definitely get more into him too. You know, I keep saying that in this video, but you guys understand. I mean, the fight breakdown is really where we learn the most, because you got to think about it, like, when they're showing these highlights of the fighters, like, before the fight actually happens in the episode, they're really trying to hype them up, and, like, because they want it to seem like it's the best versus the best. So, like, when they show the highlight tapes and they have the guys and girls talking about their careers, I don't exactly put too much stock into it. Like, I look at it, and I sometimes I also look on YouTube to see if there's any of their past fights or any good highlights out there, because you get, like, a lot of good reads out of that. But Eduardo Perez, he's impressed me so far. He trains out of AKA, American Kickboxing Academy, if you guys don't know. You know, some great heavyweights have come out of that gym. I mean, you got Cain Velasquez, Free the Man, Daniel Cormier. I mean, even, like, some of the guys like Luke Rockhold, and there's just so many people who have come out of there. I mean, this isn't a heavyweight, obviously, but Khabib, Islam Makhachev. I mean, I can keep going and going, like, with all the people, even in the older days, like Josh Koscheck, Josh Thompson. So, AKA is one of the best teams in MMA. You guys should definitely know that if you guys don't already. But, you know, obviously with that good training, he has very good wrestling. He has super fast hands, and he has a lot of power in his hands. Like, he really is, like, the real deal, in my opinion. Like, he looks really good. And the funniest part about him that I will point out before I get into Bobby more was that Bobby's last fight was in 2009. And to put that into perspective, obviously that's 13 years ago. But Eduardo Perez was also a teenager. He said he was probably like 14 years old. So that's kind of crazy. And with that, let's get into the wild story of Bobby Maximus, or Rob MacDonald. Okay, so I mentioned him in the first episode, but Bobby Maximus is by far, like, the most interesting character, I think, on this reality show this season. And for those of you who don't know, Bobby Maximus's real name is Rob MacDonald, and he actually fought on The Ultimate Fighter Season 2, which is a long time ago. I mean, like, Rashad Evans was the winner of Season 2, just to put that into perspective, and he's in his 40s now as well. So, let's see, like, what year was TUF Season 2? Because I know it was a long time ago. 2005. That's crazy. So he was on The Ultimate Fighter in 2005. Some of these fighters on this season are, like, in their early 20s. They were kids at this point. I mean, I was a kid at that point. And like even when Rob's last fight was in 2009, I was still a kid. And like even the other fighters are saying they're like they were teenagers and stuff. So clearly this is some interesting story. So he was a TUF 2 alum. He lost in the first round in a fight that he was doing okay in. He's a good wrestler, very good wrestler. He's good on top, got good ground and pound, goes for submissions. You know, top control is what he's going for pretty much. And he lost in his first fight. He said he blew out his shoulder, and it could have been a career-ending injury, but it wasn't. So he ended up getting a UFC contract. Had some mixed results in the UFC. Ended up getting cut, but in 2009 he had his son, and because of that he gave up fighting because he wanted to be a full-time father, just get into other things in life. I mean, I think that's pretty mature, and that's a great thing for him to do. I like that a lot. I mean, that is more important than fighting, you know. I think that his kids will definitely appreciate that as they grow older and realize that that's what he did. But he said he saw The Ultimate Fighter season 30, and like, you know, now he's this successful person. His mind is a lot better than it was. He's in good shape. And even though he's 43, he's at his most successful. I mean, he runs his own gym. He has like a big business. And I like his mindset. Like, he says he saw TUF season 30, you know, the heavyweights, like they were going to have heavyweights on the show, and he's like, this would be something to come back, like, and show people that I'm not done through The Ultimate Fighter. And I love that the UFC gave him that chance, because usually nowadays with TUF, they've been saying that they're trying to like get away from like the, you know, Real Housewives aspect, like where it's just people who are trying to create drama, and now they're trying to bring it back to like where we actually have like some people who are going to make noise in the UFC, because like that's the big criticism lately. I mean, a lot of these TUF fighters, like they're in the UFC and they're not even in it for too long before they're having those mixed results. But like in the early seasons, obviously we got guys like I just said, Rashad Evans, Michael Bisping was season 3. I mean, Nate Diaz season 5. People are going to hate on me for that because he never was champ. But you got to admit, Nate Diaz is an icon of the sport. But just even more people than that, Tony Ferguson, Kamaru Usman, but those are getting a little later in the seasons. But anyway, with Bobby, though, I just think that it's such an interesting thing to want to prove people wrong and just show that you could still do it if you really put your mind to it. He has such a positive mindset, and I love that he brings his energy to everybody else in the house, even though Julianna Miller probably doesn't like it too much. But hey, I mean, everybody's different, you know what I mean? You're gonna get put that many people in a house, put them in there for however many weeks that they're stranded there, nothing like to even distract themselves, like with their phones, TV, none of that. I mean, you're going to get some friction occasionally. I mean, not everybody's going to like each other and have the same type of values. But Bobby, I think, is really just an interesting person. I mean, I even feel weird calling him Bobby. Like, it's an alter ego, obviously. I mean, because his gym is called Maximus Gym, and obviously his name is Rob. So Rob, Bobby, same thing. But Rob MacDonald, he's a vet. I mean, he's been around the game for a long time. And I guess with that, we'll just get right into how this fight went for the man trying to make his comeback at 43. So I was very hyped for this fight coming in. I mean, like I said, the story of Bobby Maximus is just something else. And I think that it's just like definitely, by far, at least in my opinion, I think that's the most interesting storyline of the season. But this is probably the fight I would say that I was like second most hyped for, because the Mitchell Sipe and Usman one, that was actually fucking crazy. Like the build up for that felt as real as it could get. But with this one, it was just so interesting because, like, you know, it's the last pick of Team Pena, 43-year-old Rob MacDonald, aka Bobby Maximus, versus, you know, young prospect Team Nunes, number 1 pick Eduardo Perez. You were like, how is this going to go? Like, are we really going to see a crazy redemption story? And right off the bat, I figured that Bobby was going to start very slow, but he started right off the bat with a nice takedown, got him down, landed some ground and pound, and then Eduardo did get back up, and Bobby actually did manage to get him down again. He had a couple nice takedowns and some control time. But the thing is, when he was on the ground, he would get these great positions, like full mount. He literally got full mount like a couple times. But the thing is, he just wasn't ever solidifying his position. And, like, for those of you guys like who don't know, it's the ground game is truly like something else. Like, you get in full mount, you can't just like start throwing punches and have no control, because all the person really has to do is just buck you with their hips, like, and then pretty much from there, like, you're going to get thrown out of position, which was happening to Bobby clearly. Like, he would just lift his hips up and Bobby would fall off the full mount. And because of that, he wasn't able to land like too much effective ground and pound. He definitely landed some. I mean, like, trust me, coming in, I did not expect much. Like, as much as I wanted him to win and prove people wrong, when you've been out of the cage for 13 years, that's like, you're going to have some ring rust, whether you believe in that or not. I mean, like, it's just a whole nother ball game. But the thing is, I don't even think it was ring rust in this one. I just think it was an age thing and just hadn't fought in a long time. I mean, I think it's when you're 43 and you're fighting someone in their 20s who's as good as Eduardo Perez is, the speed is the major thing here. And Eduardo Perez's hands were way too fast for Bobby in this one. And pretty much like after Bobby wasn't able to really control him on the ground, he was getting very tired. And the thing with that is he was already slower the moment they started fighting. So the fact that he's already exhausted midway through the first round, I was like, eesh, that's not good. Honestly, it's not the same thing, not even close to the same like level, I guess. But like when Nick Diaz just fought at UFC 266, he hadn't fought since January 2015. I remember specifically because one fight in beef that got me into the UFC is like big as it. Well, it didn't get me into it as much as I am now, but it like was the start of something special. I will say that. Jon Jones versus Daniel Cormier. That rivalry back in like late 2014, early 2015, and then when they had the rematch. But that was UFC 182. I remember that event. I remember when they fought because it was such a big deal at the time because they hated each other. Probably still do hate each other, whether they want to admit it or not. But the one after that was Anderson Silva versus Nick Diaz, UFC 183. And it was a very bizarre fight. I mean, Nick knew that coming forward against Anderson Silva was an interesting idea, so he was trying to bait him in with all the antics, the trash talk. You guys remember that's the fight where he laid in the middle of the octagon. But the reason why I'm bringing that up is because that fight was in 2015, and then that fight with Robbie Lawler, the rematch, was UFC 266 in 2021. So that's a 6-year difference. And you could see that it affected him. Now, Bobby clearly kept himself in like phenomenal shape, which is one of the things that was interesting to me. But when you're 43 years old, because the thing is, Nick's not that old. Like Nick Diaz, let's see, I think he's only in like, I think he's 37 or 38. He's 38, and his birthday is in, yeah, so he was 38 in that fight, I think. So, I don't know. I mean, with Bobby Maximus, like I said, you could tell that the speed just wasn't there after a certain point, and he was trying to throw just weak punches. He was backing up against the cage, and Eduardo took advantage. He was hitting him with some big shots. His jab is actually phenomenal, and it's very quick, and it has a lot of power to it. I think that's the one that actually hurt Bobby, and Bobby was just hurt, tired, and he was shooting for kind of lazy takedowns, I'm going to say. And one of those takedowns, Perez defended it perfectly, got on top, and just landed vicious ground and pound until the ref pulled him off. And it was a first-round finish for Eduardo Perez. So with that, I guess we can kind of say what we see out of this fight. I think that Perez, like I said before, is the real deal. He's a bona fide prospect with that one. I know that Bobby's old and he hasn't fought in a long time, but you could just see the skill sets that this guy possesses. His boxing is very slick for a guy that big. And like I said, he has good wrestling and he's very tough. He can get through adversity because, like I said, he was getting taken down and he was eating shots like on the ground, and he was still got up and still finished them within the same round. So I'm very big on this guy now. I'm intrigued to see where Eduardo Perez goes from here in the competition, because I think he could very well win this whole thing. Now, in terms of Bobby, he started off pretty well, and I know that he got finished in the first round, but how can you not be impressed by that? Like, I don't think Perez expected him to come out and go out like guns blazing like he pretty much did, like getting those takedowns early and landed a lot of ground and pound. Like that was impressive. Like for someone who hasn't fought in 13 years, he came out the way that you should come out. Just go for it. And, you know, obviously it didn't work out in the end, but, you know, it is what it is. He even said it's not the end for him. I mean, I'm curious to see where he goes from here. I don't know, because it's so weird because he doesn't really have, like, an actual, like, need to fight because he already is successful in his business. So it's just, I think, out of hunger at this point, which I think is really cool. You know, maybe he'll get a few more fights in there. I hope I get to see it. But with that, I guess we can finish this episode by talking real quick about the next fight that just got announced, which was the women's flyweights, Julianna Miller, who I mentioned before, of Team Pena, versus Claire Guthrie of Team Nunes. And the thing about this fight that's interesting is Claire was actually Julianna's first pro loss. So there you go. There's a story behind that fight. And Claire was also, if I'm not mistaken, she was... she's one of the people that Bobby was doing like the little sports psychology sessions with, much to Julianna's chagrin. And the thing with that is, like, I wonder if that's going to pop up again in the next episode even more than it did in this one. Because I'd be curious to see if Bobby's going to give Claire the same type of attention when his teammate who previously called him out about this, you know, has a problem about it. Like, they're fighting. Julianna and Claire are fighting. So I don't know if Bobby wants to start that beef, I guess, or continue it maybe. I don't really even know if it's beef because it was a very like respectful conversation. I don't think that like they don't like each other. I just think it's like a difference of mindsets. And the thing with me is like with Julianna Miller, I feel like for this fight, she might have been insecure about it because she knows Claire has beaten her in the past, which I didn't know in the beginning of that episode. So I don't know. I don't want to say that because, in my opinion, like I think it's stupid when people say, "Oh, well, this fighter's scared of this fighter." I don't think any of these people are scared of anybody. But I do think that there are underlying confidence things when someone's beaten you before. And Julianna Miller, I think she might feel that way towards Claire, which is why she might have been so pressed about Bobby doing the life coaching things with her. And I don't know. I mean, I'm curious to see where that goes. I think Julianna Miller is cool as hell. I mean, I'm giving her a little bit of criticism in this episode, I guess, just because I agree with Bobby in this particular situation that arose. But Julianna Miller seems like she's cool as hell. I mean, very supportive of her team. I like that a lot, and she just seems like a cool chick. So, I mean, I'm definitely intrigued to see if she could beat Claire Guthrie, who I'm 99% sure was Team Nunes' #1 pick. So, we'll see how that goes for her, and can't wait to talk about it with you guys next week. See you guys then.